Happy Monday, everyone. Welcome to the Media Row podcast with me, Justin Miller. Happy to have you along, whether you're downloading us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts, you can get Media Row. Or if you're watching on YouTube, really appreciate that as well. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, rate, all that good stuff. We really appreciate it. And I know we're getting the show started a little later today. We'll be back on track the rest of the week. But like I put out a tweet earlier this morning, the reason is, for a good reason, a brand new head coach coming into Des Moines. Eric Henderson making his introductory press conference today in Des Moines. So we were there live, covered it, introduced ourselves to the 6'7" giant of a coach, Eric Henderson, him and his athletic staff with his assistants. We'll have audio and video of Henderson at the press conference here today on the show, as well as our just kind of, takeaways from what we gathered from the former Jackrabbit head coach coming back to Des Moines. A lot to get to with that, as well as today is the national championship. Everything in March, everything in January, December, everything has led to tonight, as it will be Florida taking on Houston in the national championship. We'll recap kind of our thoughts on the craziness of the Final Four, as well as give you a preview of who we think will come out victorious tonight. So before we jump into anything else, need to give a shout out to one of our sponsors at Kelly's Little Nipper, 1701 East Grand Avenue in Des Moines. Go check out Kelly's Little Nipper. I plan to go out for lunch, kind of a later lunch, on Friday at Kelly's. It's getting to that time of the year too, where it's getting warmer. That patio is going to open up, and more people are going to be flooded over there to the historic Kelly's Little Nipper. If you do go there, though, make sure to tell them that Media Row sent you. We always appreciate that, and we just appreciate meeting new people at Kelly's too. So hope to see you there. Go check them out. Great food, great drinks, and even better community. Kelly's Little Nipper, 1701 East Grand Avenue in Des Moines. So let's get into the big news of the day here in the Drake community. 31st head coach in program history making his introductory press conference along with Drake University President Martin, as well as athletic director in Hardin. Wonderful atmosphere. Let's just start with that. There was more people at Eric Henderson's introductory press conference than there were when Darren DeVries and his 2023 squad, coming off of Drake's first Missouri Valley Conference tournament title since 2008, on a selection Sunday. Same area. It was the same club area on top of the Knapp Center. Packed. I mean, every TV crew was there. Had Sean Roberts from KXNO there. Chris Williams from Iowa Everywhere was along with us. So just everyone coming out to meet the brand new head coach. I know Chris and Eric were good friends at Iowa State University as well, but just everyone really excited and gravitating towards Drake right now. And it's a credit. We've said this time and time again to Brian Hardin, the staff he's put together, Jack Bloom, President Martin, everyone at Drake really putting out a great product and getting people who, I hate to use this phrase because it's overused in my opinion and comes off very cliche, but there is some truth to it, of people that are just buying in to Drake University. And while a lot of attention has been on Drake with the transfers, with McCollum going to Iowa City, a lot of people been paying attention to Drake for that reason. Today they were paying attention because they're wondering what the next step is. Like us, who is Drake getting? Who is this Eric Henderson guy? And what is he like? And before we kind of get into my takeaways, which there are a lot. I wrote down a lot of notes and a lot of things that make me really excited and positive about the future moving forward under Eric Henderson's coaching staff. We want to hit on something that stuck with me. And I think a lot of people were wondering why Eric Henderson chose Drake. There's a few people that were mentioning, doesn't this feel like a linear move for the head coach? Goes from one bid conference to another one bid conference in the NCAA tournament. And this is in his own words on video. And for those listening on Spotify, here in audio, of why Eric Henderson decided to leave Brookings and head back home to Iowa and take over a brand new roster for the Drake Bulldogs. Here is Eric Henderson on why he chose Drake.
Yeah, people are the most important thing when I think about decisions. And the enthusiasm, the energy that is surrounding Drake basketball and Drake athletics, for that matter, is incredible. And I wanted to be a part of that. I wanted to, as an Iowa guy, I wanted to be a part of that. And I do feel like, obviously it takes a lot of support, right, to be successful. The crowds that you guys are getting, the Duke Collective, and the support that we're getting with that leadership is incredible. But as important as that is, there still has to, like, I watch and talk to these guys about how they feel, the players. Financial support, yes, extremely important, right? But even more, showing up to games, making sure when you see our student athletes, you say hello to them, you give them a hug, you make sure they feel good about themselves. That's what we're all about. That's what we're all about. And that's what you're all about. And so when they say why Drake, those are the reasons. The energy, the enthusiasm, the support in multiple ways is incredible. And that's what I want to be a part of. The Missouri Valley Conference, we know it's going to be a big time challenge. It prepares you. There's incredible coaches. I know most of the coaches in the league. We played against several teams in the Missouri Valley when we were at South Dakota State. And so we know it's going to be a great challenge. But we're excited for those challenges. And Arch Madness, incredible. The history and the branding. And to be a part of Des Moines' home team, right? That the way they branded this is incredible. And that's why the enthusiasm and excitement's there. So that's why. And we couldn't be more thrilled to do that.
So there's Eric Henderson, head coach of the Drake men's basketball team, getting introduced from Brian Harden and discussing, just what intrigued him to take over this Drake men's basketball team, and to get into a few things that just intrigued me about Eric Henderson. Number one is enthusiasm. And I know I'm trying to not get, blinded by just being a Drake fan. I understand in every press conference, every introductory press conference, coaches practice that out and make sure they're saying all the right things to win over a fan base. But still, you're learning about the person and you're seeing how they react in front of the media and when they're getting constant questions and when they're the center of attention. And number one, Eric Henderson has great enthusiasm. Brian Harden mentioned it, of how before he introduced him, Eric Henderson's a guy that on the phone, you can hear his smile. Martin mentioned him quite a bit, as well as just someone who you gravitate to with his enthusiasm and his excitement. And it definitely comes across. And I'm going to say this, and it's not a dig at Darren DeVries or Ben McCollum. One, those guys did amazing work and really put Drake back in the spotlight. Drake fans should always be grateful for what they did. Number two, they were always great to me. They were more than generous to talk to me and treat me with respect, and I will always be grateful for how they treated me as a professional as well. But Ben McCollum and Darren DeVries were very monotone in a sense, were very kind of like a Bill Belichick of, yeah, this is how X, Y, and Z happens. You know, they very much so weren't a give me the mic and let me cook type guy. Eric Henderson has that feeling to him. I mean, he goes up there and right away is commanding the room. And maybe it's because he's 6'7", but also I think it's because of just the way he speaks. And he speaks so strongly and so passionately where you can't help but sit in that room and go, damn, that's my guy. That's who I want to play for if I was a player. And he's just great enthusiasm of really just putting this fan base, and he's in front of donors, in front of his bosses, and really said all the right things. And so that was number one on my list. Very excited just for how he was able to command that room. Number two, and this was something we mentioned as a reason Drake should go after him when the Ben McCollum news came out after their second round loss, was this dude's had great tutors. And it starts with Greg McDermott of, you know, this was a guy that recruited Eric Henderson, and he learned under TJ Otzelberger, learned under Darren DeVries. So he's learned under some greats. And to kind of go along with just the way Eric Henderson today was enthusiastic, personable, showed a humanistic side, was funny, commanded the room, but also showed, you know, kind of why he fits this job because of his mentors. Here's a video on just Eric Henderson discussing his relationship with Greg McDermott and how much it's prepared him to be in this exact spot.
So I had to, if I wanted to get on the floor, I had to be a great teammate. I see Coach Lehman here. He was at UNO at that time. He would understand. He would probably echo that statement. But I had to do the little things, right? I had to do the little things. And Coach Mack, luckily, he appreciated those things and really put a lot of faith in me. But the way he put together a team, the way he made each and every single player feel value and then bring that together, that connectivity, that connection was incredible. And obviously still have a great relationship with him today when he's not stealing my players.
And I love it right there. That just shows how he's so funny. You know, he can make fun of himself talking about, you know, the only way I could really get on the floor was to be a great teammate. But also showing how he really values the culture that he needs to build and the view and the vision he sees for the future of this program. It really starts with that foundation. And he talked to me, you know, afterwards about how, you know, to really recreate this roster with so many changes, you're going to have to start there with the culture that he learned from Greg McDermott, learned from TJ Otzelberger, Darren DeVries. And he mentioned how Ben McCollum was he doesn't know him as well, but was very generous in letting him know about things at Drake and the fans and the people he'll be working with. But he really leaned on Darren DeVries, and Darren had nothing but nice things to say about his time at Drake. I mean, hell, Darren was the guy that stuck around for 6 seasons and could have easily left, but continued to stay with Drake until he found life-changing money opportunities. And so just those were the first two things that stood out to me, was just the way he spoke of his past, the way he spoke of his mentors. And I mean, he didn't forget about anyone, mentioned his family, of course, thanked everyone on Drake's staff for getting him to this point. But what really was impressive too was just the way he went out of his way to thank South Dakota State and all the people that took a chance on him, because I think you saw in these videos that I've shown so far, you see why he was a principal and a teacher and why he values that stuff so much with just the way he speaks and carries himself. But I also think it shows a lot about the person he is when he's willing to discuss and thank the people at South Dakota State for giving him a shot. I mean, some coaches don't do that. Some coaches take the next job and move forward. Even ones that have taken chances on coaches, giving them their first, like with Eric Henderson, their first Division I opportunity. And he went out of his way to really thank the fans and the staff at South Dakota State for allowing him to spend 6 great years with South Dakota State as a head coach. So that was really cool as well. But one of the things that I starred that Brian Harden had mentioned, and you just learn the more you research Eric Henderson, of why Henderson is going to be a great grab and why Henderson maybe on paper seems like another home run hire for Brian Harden and Drake University, is with Henderson taking over this Drake team, there's not many players left over from their tournament run. And he has still proven he can build and retool a program. And if you go back to when he was an assistant under TJ Otzelberger, TJ left South Dakota State and 4 players automatically transferred. And when you look at how Eric Henderson was able to retool and rebuild that program, what he did the following year, he responded by winning 22 games. And then South Dakota State in the last 6 seasons won 78% of their conference games. Drake won 73% of theirs. South Dakota State, along with Drake, had one of the best home court advantages and home court records in the past 6 years. Only teams having better records than the Jackrabbits and Bulldogs at home is Gonzaga, Houston, and Kansas. And so I think you're seeing similarities in why Brian Harden was so eager to go out and get Eric Henderson, is because he realized this is a guy that isn't going to be scared to retool a program and continue to keep, even though DeVries had 6 amazing years with Drake and put Drake on the map, and McCollum had a historic season this year, leading Drake to their first NCAA tournament win since 1971. He's not going to be afraid of any of that, even with 5 players, now with Tavion Banks leaving to Iowa City as well, with 5 players leaving and a head coach going to Iowa. He's not going to be afraid or feel that pressure because he's done it before. And so now you have him going to work. He's brought in slowly but surely a few more transfers. Bryson Ball, who we talked about last week, and Braden Applehans as well from New Mexico. Bringing in a few guys. There's 3 Bulldogs that were in attendance over the press conference as well. Andrew Aaliyah was one of them, as well as Eli Shetlar and Joey Matoni. So you have those 3 in attendance. We don't know, are they going to transfer? Are they not? But they were still in attendance. And Eric Henderson actually pointed them out, saying, thank you for being in attendance. You look great in blue and white. Let's keep it that way. So he's slowly but surely rebuilding this team. And I have nothing but confidence that Eric Henderson is going to retool Drake to continue to be at their high standard of a winning program that they've proven to be the last 6 years. And so with all of that concluding, another reason that stuck out to me of why I'm excited for this Eric Henderson hire is, again, one of the main reasons he's been able to retool South Dakota State as a mid-major and as one of the better mid-major schools is the way he has surrounded himself with winners. And he brings in 3 assistant coaches from South Dakota State. Rob Kalinkfuss, who has 2 decades of experience with the Jackrabbits. Tramel Barnes, 5 years of experience with Henderson, as well as Billy Brown with 5 years as well. And I asked Coach Henderson afterwards, because after the press conference, media was able to go up, introduce yourself, maybe ask a few more questions. And I asked him of just, how does that help take the pressure off of having to retool Drake, of having, those familiar faces following you, and Tramel, Rob, and Billy as well. So here's Coach Henderson on just being able to bring his 3 guys with him.
It'd be important to have a little bit of continuity, right? And those guys have been along my side for a long time. I trust them. I believe in them. And to have them with me is pretty special.
So to really put a bow on this and to wrap up our coach's introductory press conference kind of breakdown, is I'm just really excited about this hire. Again, I understand introductory press conferences, they're going to say the right things. They're not going to really try to say anything that makes fans nervous. They're not going to admit, it's gonna be a lot of work and it's gonna kind of suck to have to only come into a program with 3 dudes and only one of them played in-game minutes of last season and then got hurt. Yeah, they're not going to say any of that. But he said the right things and he has a different attitude that Drake hasn't seen in a while. Giacoletti is a guy that had that enthusiasm and kind of had that Midwest nice that you go, oh, okay, you could sit down and have a beer with this guy. But Darren DeVries and Ben McCollum, they were proven winners, and they had a similar style in terms of being in front of the media. And Henderson just, he's a proven winner, but he also has that great media presence, which for my position, my job, makes me really excited too, because it just feels like there's going to be so many fun things that we're going to be able to do with Coach, and he's going to be so easy to get a hold of, and just very excited for what the future brings with the Henderson legacy. And to wrap it all up, here's Coach Henderson on just kind of his plans for how he's going to refill this roster and just how he believes the best is yet to come to Drake.
The basketball program here at Drake has done is incredible, right? And when you think about, but I was in those shoes before. And at the end of the day, we're going to control what we can control. We don't talk a lot about, in our program, we're not going to talk a lot about, hey, we have to win a championship. We have to do this. We have to do that to be successful. It's way more important for us to think about what habits are we building on a daily basis. What's the process look like? What is it going to take? And then we'll let those results speak for themselves. And that's how I approached it in the past when I've been in these situations, and that's how I'm going to approach it today.
So a huge thank you to just the Drake athletic staff and community for allowing me to go cover that press conference. Thank you to Coach Henderson. Quick introduction, I know, but I'll be annoying Coach Henderson here soon enough. We're hoping to plan and get him on the show for next week. So be on the lookout for that. Coach Henderson joining Media Row here very soon. So huge thank you to Jack and everyone, Brian at Drake Athletics, for allowing us to cover that. Really excited to see what the future brings. Okay. As we now transition from coaching press conferences to what will happen next season, the basketball season isn't over just yet. We have one more game tonight, the game that everyone's been waiting for, the national championship between Florida and surprisingly Houston. And I mean surprisingly because of the way Houston was able to beat Duke. So first, going into how Florida got to the national title game, beat Auburn 79-73, back and forth physical battle, one we expected. Just seemed like Auburn wasn't able to control the paint, and we said it on Friday's show of Florida's size is able to really cause some issues for teams that really utilize that paint game like Rome and the Tigers love to do. So Gators able to get through that. Now move forward to the national title game. Perfect timing for Florida to improve and move forward and survive and advance as former Gators head coach and the coach that made me actually start to really enjoy watching Florida basketball, Billy Donovan. So Billy Donovan goes to the Basketball Hall of Fame, gets inducted into the Basketball Hall of Fame, and here's his Florida Gators now looking to try to win their third ever national championship. Now the game of the weekend, which didn't look like it was going to be the game of the weekend, Houston coming back from 14 points down to beat Duke 70-67. And that was a game Duke did everything right for 38, 39 minutes. I mean, Shire, the head coach, mentioned how he feels for the players because they played basically the entire game to perfection and didn't come out on top. That was a game where, man, I was watching it with my dad, and I'd say, man, this is a game that feels, if you look at the scoreboard, it's a 7-point game with 15 minutes to go. That's a close game, but it doesn't feel close because Duke is just controlling every facet of the game. And they did. Duke becomes the first team ever to lose a Final Four game while being the better team at field goal percentage, better team at three-point percentage, free throw percentage, less turnovers, more rebounds, and I think more blocks as well. And yet Houston comes back to beat Duke, was able to hit a few shots late, I think scored 7 points in 15 seconds or something crazy like that, and was able to put down Duke. And that final possession by Duke was awful. The full court heave, Proctor just trying to spin and get a shot up before the buzzer. But man, just a crazy game. And now you're seeing two teams battle tested in the national title game. I put out this tweet. If you were upset about there being 4 number 1 seeds in the Final Four, I'm sure you were shutting your mouth watching those games because sometimes you don't get the upsets in March Madness, and that's okay because you just want to see great basketball. And that's what we got Saturday. So just sit back and appreciate it because we're going to get a great national championship as well. Florida favored by 1.5, kind of a toss-up game. I still like Florida. I just like how this team, I think, has been the best team in college basketball. Maybe Duke was second, in my opinion, getting into Saturday. But as of right now, I think Florida is the better of two teams. They're stronger in the paint. They can really cause issues for Houston. Houston, though, a team that with great defense and Hall of Fame coaching by Kelvin Sampson, who, again, I don't think I'd ever seen smile until that video came out of them, spraying the water on him, going into the locker room celebrating. But I just like Florida's athleticism, and I like their size to overtake Houston and give me the Gators hoisting up the national title game, national title trophy tonight for the Florida Gators. So I know that was a lot to get into. Expect it moving forward because the transfer portal continues to be crazy. Chris Williams and I were joking about how there is no down period. Even, he's covering Cyclones, a bigger team. I'm covering Drake, and we're both still sitting here checking the transfer portal websites, checking news, making sure resources are accurate. So it's just been crazy. Expect more highlights here of the press conference out on social media as we get ready to post this. Again, apologize for the later start, but hopefully you enjoyed the show. We'll be back at our normal time of being out by 2 o'clock on Wednesday and Friday. But make sure you're tuning in on Wednesday as we announce some really, really big news here on the Media Row podcast with me, Justin Miller. Huge thank you to everyone that helps make this podcast look pretty. DKG Images, a huge thank you to Devin and those guys, as well as a big thank you to Kelly's Little Nipper for their support of Media Row. See you guys on Wednesday.